Welcome to another whiskey comparison video, and today we have two very different but very similar whiskeys. We are going to be doing a tasting comparison between Glenns Creek's Stave and Barrel. Glenns Creek is a little craft distillery that has the Old Crow factory right behind it. The old Crow factory. And they make a whiskey called OCD, which is Old Crow Distillery number 5, meaning that they found a yeast strain in number 5 fermenter. And so that's what they ended up making that particular whiskey out of, which is very interesting. It is a cool little distillery to go visit if you want to see the raw side of craft distilling. They are all into it over there. And then this one comes through Beam Suntory. This is Old Granddad 114. And Old Granddad, that is Basil Hayden, whose picture is there. And this was actually his grandson's idea to make a whiskey called Old Granddad in respect to his grandfather. So he came up with Old Granddad, and it somehow made its way into the Jim Beam family of whiskeys. And if you have ever had Basil Hayden, Old Granddad is in that same family, same mash bill. So it's 63% corn, it's 27% rye, and it's 10% malted barley. And anything over 15% in rye is considered a high rye. So these are both high rye. Don't know the mash bill on this one. I do know that at the time I purchased this, it is my recollection that this is an MGP product, meaning that the juice from this, the new make, actually came from Indiana, and then the aging was all done on site. So the double oaking, everything that went on with that came from Glenns Creek. Now, let's look at the colors on these. You'll see a major difference between those. The Glenns Creek over here, I'd say that's a +2 on the Walker scale, and this is a +1 on the Walker scale. Now, the way the Walker scale works is Johnnie Walker, I'll get the name down, Johnnie Walker Black is colored, as is Monkey Shoulder, as are a lot of Scotch whiskeys that are mass produced, to be the perfect color, the color that makes you most interested in buying that particular whiskey. So rather than using amber and mahogany and all these different terms that people use, I just say that this is +2 over that scale and this is +1. So both of them are darker than Johnnie Walker, and I'll just use that scale consistently from here on out. The other difference between these two are the ages. This is 6 year, according to what I've read. This is 6 months. Now, you may be thinking this stuff is going to taste like rock cut. Well, we're going to find out. And I like doing my research ahead of time, show you my tasting notes there. I have to freeze frame that and see what all my scribbles are about. But I like to compare things and taste them myself and then go read other people's tasting notes. When I did there's almost no tasting notes. In fact, I really didn't find any tasting notes on this other than their website. As for this one, there's tasting notes all over the place, and some people love it, and some people are like, yeah, all right, it's a little hot and maybe too aggressive. Well, this one, just to show you how different people's tasting notes can be, and why you should not be freaked out by the fact that you can't taste what other people are tasting. One reviewer said that the nose, simply the nose, on this had floral, grass clippings, bittery spice, metallic, sarsaparilla, ground cinnamon. Another reviewer said dark fruit, caramel, dark sweets, vanilla, spice. And yet another person said cinnamon, brown sugar, rye, heat, and orange peel. None of them. There is nothing between these three reviewers that matches up. No commonalities between them. And when I tasted them, I got something completely different as well. Some of their things, vanilla and rye, I did pull out of the nose in that. But if you're ever doubting your ability to taste and smell, then just use this as your guideline. I don't think these people are full of it. I think it's just a matter of different tasting experiences. We all have different things that we're drawn to, and if that's something we find in a whiskey, then we're going to write it down. So I think you could say it's complex since there's 20 different things you could nose off of this one whiskey. Now I'm going to go from this direction to this. I have tasted these already twice, and I'm coming in now for my third taste, and that's just because I need the extra. I'm still learning. But that is really dark whiskey. This is 59.6% alcohol. That is 57% alcohol. So they're very close in that sense. Somebody told me that 114 was the most the human palate could take. This whiskey will challenge that. The first thing that I pull off of this one is it feels like I've just gone into a barn where they are cutting wood, and it is a hot sawdust smell. And it's really nice. But underneath it, I get like a burnt teriyaki sauce. That's something I've ever smelled anywhere else. Which kind of leads into like a molasses. So it's got a very, very interesting nose to it. First thing I'm going to tell you is I drank too much of it. Take very little of this in your mouth. A little goes a long way, or your tongue will pay for it. I actually, after doing some tastings with some aggressive alcohols like this, started getting the scabbiness on my tongue. High alcohol can be hard to take. But what's interesting about this is, flavor-wise, it doesn't knock me back. Whatever the new make is that they used here, this high rye from MGP, it's got a really nice flavor to it. The rye is in there. It does remind me of tasting new make, but it's got enough going on with that cask that it makes me wonder if they used a smaller cask to do this. It'd be really interesting to know, because it has really taken on a lot more of the wood, as you can tell in the color. 6 months to 6 years we're talking about. That's some pretty aggressive aging right there. So the thing that I love about this whiskey is that once I get towards the finish, I get dark chocolate and coconut. And back when I was doing pairings and trying to match up different chocolates to whiskeys, I took Lint's Intense Chili, I believe it's called. It's the dark chocolate chili candy bar, I guess you call it, chocolate. And put a little of that in your mouth and then take a swig of this. They're both intense on their own, but they mellow each other out, and it tastes like an Almond Joy. The coconut just flies out of that. And there's still this hot chili, but it is a really, really nice pairing. So I don't know if they're still getting this from MGP or if they're making it now in-house, because 6 months. I mean, and they're making whiskey there. So it may have changed, and hopefully that has not changed the flavor of this, or I shall be doing all I can to hang on to that bottle for a long time, because that is a surprisingly good 6 month or more whiskey. So it's going to be hard to find. You probably have to be in Kentucky to find it, but I would keep my eye out for that. So let's do old Granddad 114. Another one that my opinion has kind of shifted all over the place on each time I try it. This one has more of the, it's definitely a different nose. There's a sweetness in this also. I get a little sawdust, but nothing like that one. So that's probably the oak. I was saying pine when I first saw this one. I get the brown sugar. I get kind of a sweet rye out of that. Looking at my notes to see what else I might have forgotten. I mean, there's vanilla in there as well. And then maybe, yeah, a hint of orange peel in there. A little caramel there. And there's definitely a spicy rye. It goes peppery on the end. There's an odd earthiness to it. Yeast, that's what it is. Yeast. You taste a little of the rye in there, but you taste the yeast. I would have expected to taste the yeast more in new make than I would have in this, but I do taste that yeasty kind of bread dough, raw bread dough kind of thing going on. Trying to see if I had any other notes on this one. Yeah, pepper, definitely. Tart through the middle, little big red chewing gum. Those were interesting notes. I could get that little bit of cinnamon gum there on the end with the heat. And sometimes it's hard to tell whether you're tasting it or if you're just thinking of it because of, it's like, I want to say like almost like a sherry kind of a smell to it, but I don't know where that's coming from. That's really interesting. So, I think both are competent whiskeys. I would say that the fact that this one's 40, this one's 27 to 30, you know, if I were going to buy one, I would buy that one because of the coconut and the dark chocolate. Those are flavors that call out to me. You guys voted overwhelmingly for this one, but I'm telling you right now, I sometimes wonder with the voting if you vote for this one because you know it and you don't know this one, and you like this one, so you vote for it, and that's what makes the voting very tough. And that's part of the reason in this particular round of comparisons and doing votings on Instagram, I'm taking my answer as the way to move them forward rather than you guys on stuff like this, because I don't know if you know this or not, and if you don't, I would suggest that next time you're in Frankfurt, you might give these guys a shot at Glens Creek. It's right down from Castle and Key and not far from Woodford Reserve, and also not far from Buffalo Trace. So lots of distilleries all in that little area right there. And so if you're heading to that area, definitely check out Glens Creek. That is a craft distillery extraordinaire. I mean, they are in one little building and they do a lot out of that one little building. And as for Old Granddad, well, you're going to find that in a lot of places. So I would not hesitate to pick up a bottle of that. But it is harsh to the untrained palate. You may want to water it down a little bit. I would not water this down. I watered it down. It didn't help it. I think it hurt it probably more than it helped it, because there's some really nice rich flavors in there, and I just didn't want to mask those any more than I had to. So hope this has been a helpful video for you guys. Again, always love to hear your comments, and you can leave them on YouTube or go ahead and leave them on Instagram. I'm in both places with these videos. So thanks for watching, and we'll head back over the Atlantic again for our next tasting.